Hey guys, I'm the 50s kid. This is my E46 BMW. Recently took a long freeway trip and I noticed that the car was kind of a little wallowy. You know, it was pulling a little bit left and right before it was centering itself. And I believe what that is the front control arm bushings. On this car, it's something that you've got to change really with any car. You know, your lower control arm bushings or your front control arm bushings, they're going to go bad after so many thousand miles. I've got about 180,000 miles at this point. I believe it's the original parts, so time to change them. Anyway, let's get started. Got to get this aluminum skid plate off. There are going to be 8 bolts, 4 in the front, 4 in the back. They're 16 millimeters. I'm going to loosen them first before I whomp on it with my impact gun because it makes a hell of a racket on this thing. So sometimes these front bushings are so worn out that you could actually move the front tire with your foot. When the car is on the ground, you can move the front tire this way. You can see that the control arm is right here. That's going to cause the control arm to pivot this way, so it's going to be moving this way, left to right. And it'll do that when the bushing is so worn out. But you can see mine is not quite that bad, but we're going to see in a second how bad it really is. These are also 16s. Wow, that is not as bad as I thought, but it's definitely not great. You can see that there's quite a lot of movement in here. The brand new one's going to be stiff. You know, the original one, when it's brand new, it's going to be stiff and you're not going to be able to move it. So as far as taking these off, I'm going to hit it with some silicone spray. You can probably use anything. Probably brake clean will work even. Penetrating fluid. Silicone spray is rubber safe. I've seen someone actually twist these around to get them moving. Yeah, that's coming right off. Easy. So before we finish up, just in case you guys want to go ahead and change your whole front control arm, you know, maybe your bearing, your ball joints are bad. You can tell by wiggling the car when this is still attached, by the way. You can tell by wiggling the tire, because if you go on the side of the tire and you wiggle it, that's going to give you your most leverage. If this moves anyway, like back, you know, left and right or front and back or anything like that, your ball joint's toast, and it's going to be way easier to actually just purchase a whole new control arm rather than try to press the bearings out or the ball joints out. Most people are not going to own a ball joint press at home, you know, and it's just, by the time you spend money on that tool, it was just cheaper to just buy new control arms anyway. Now, in order to get this out, there is actually a nut on the top of here. It's going to be a 22 millimeter nut. Let me get you a shot of it. So that's going to be it up there. I do believe it's a 22 millimeter. It's going to be a lock nut, like a nylon lock nut. So you're going to want to replace it when you take it off. Okay. So you would get that nut off, and in order to actually break the ball joint loose, normally you want to hit the thing it goes through, which is going to be the subframe, but you'll notice the steering rack's in the way. You're not going to be able to do that. So in this particular case, you're going to hit the thing itself. You're going to whack on this with a hammer, your heaviest hammer that you got. Hopefully you got like a 4-pound sledge. Whack on this, it'll eventually pop loose. You could also use a pickle fork, but you'll notice there's really no room to kind of get it up in. You might be able to get it in from a side angle if you want. So you can try that if you want to, but the way I've removed this before is just using a hammer. However, I would recommend doing this last. You want to do this ball joint first. You see it in there. That's also just a nut on the top. That's probably a 19. I'm not exactly sure, I haven't tried it, but probably a 19, just, you know, standard sizes here. You want to take this one off first. You'll have to take your tire off, of course. You can't actually hit this one from the side. You're not going to be able to hit the knuckle because the tie rod's in the way, but you should be able to hit it from the back. But again, that might also be difficult. So in this particular case, you could also hit the thing it goes through. Again, you're throwing it out, so it's not going to matter. This is aluminum, and you are probably more likely to deform it. You're definitely going to cause some marks on this, but again, you're replacing this anyway, so it's not going to matter too much. So I would recommend taking it off at this knuckle first, because if you take it off at this one, it's going to be swinging down, the whole tire is going to swing around, and when you hit on this, your impacts are not going to have any effect. So you want to hit this first. That way this, when it comes off, is still going to be attached to this. You're actually going to leave it attached in the back, so it's going to be attached to the body. So it'll be attached in two places. That way when you hit this one second, the impacts are going to have some effect, and they'll just, this ball joint will pop free, and then you want to take that off last. Now, it's possible that your joint could be so deteriorated that the inner part is actually going to stay behind on the control arm. If that's the case, you're going to want to get a little two-jaw puller like this, hook it around. You can get a set of 3 of these at Harbor Freight for like 20 or 30 bucks. You can also rent this at the auto parts store. You just want to hook it around and then just use that to pull the little rubber centerpiece off. But in my particular case, this thing came off whole, so we should be all good. We're just going to clean this thing up with a little bit of brake clean or carb cleaner. Solvent is solvent. Actually, there's solvent in the silicone spray, so that could probably work as well. I saw that it kind of dissolved a little bit of the dirt when I sprayed it on a second ago. But for the most part, we are clean. Another thing I want to point out is that there are 2 different versions of this. On the older BMWs, it actually, I believe the diameter of this was 60 millimeters. This one's going to be 65, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's right. It might be 68. I'll throw it up on the screen. I'll throw the 2 sizes up on the screen, but you just want to go ahead and make sure you get the correct part. The part number stamped on the side of this. Might have too much light here. The part number stamped on the side, so you should be able to grab your part number off of the old part if you just go ahead and take a look under your car, or you can look on realoem.com. So normally you could use some soapy water to actually lubricate this in order to slip it back on, but I don't have that handy just at the moment. But I do have silicone paste, which is the same thing as dielectric grease. So I'm going to use that because it's handy. And that should be nicely lubricating, hopefully. So now it should be all nice and ready to slip in. Yeah, nice and easy. She just slipped right on there. So we'll want to align this. It's actually got little alignment pegs on the body. You can see them right there, little alignment pegs. So you just gotta get that aligned on. And they give you new bolts, which is kind of nice. I believe the reason for this is because these are designated as stretch bolts by BMW. Probably because they're 10.9s. 10.9s? 10.9s. So they're extra brittle. So the torque on these is going to be 59 Newton meters or 43 foot-pounds. Just double checking them. So that's it. Well, let's do the other side just for grins. So easy. Ooh, looks like this control arm is a little gouged right here. You know, I wonder if these weren't replaced once already. Maybe. I think they definitely would have had to be, because how else are you going to get a gouge on the end of that thing right there? So they must have been replaced. So I've already got the silicone on here. Just that easy. Let's see, where are we? Where are the mounts? I'm at a strange angle here. I'm to get this tightened on first. Help draw it up on there. I'll double check this one. Okay. All done. Just that easy. This is a really quick job. So let's talk about the torque on these bolts for a second. Now, the torque on these ones is 59 newton meters or 43 foot-pounds, right? They say the torque on these, the initial torque is going to be exactly the same, 59 newton meters or 43 foot-pounds, followed by another 90-degree turn, followed by another 30-degree turn. I don't understand this at all. I don't think that anybody out there actually does this because these bolts are exactly the same size. They're both M10s. So if this is the suspension mount right there, and 43 foot-pounds is good enough for an M10 bolt right there for the suspension, why do you need anything more for just this aluminum skid plate, basically? It's a little bit of a reinforcement, but these M10 bolts are not going to come loose if you just torque them to the same exact torque that you torque these to. I honestly think that that might be a misprint in the Bentley manual, so, and maybe even the technical information system from BMW. So I put these at, 43 foot-pounds, 59 newton meters, and they hold up just fine. So that's what I do. You guys can do what you want, but that's what I do. I also do not replace these, because I really don't think that 43 foot-pounds is the yield point for these fasteners. If they were past their yield point, they would have stretched and you wouldn't be able to screw them back in. So they're not quite at that point, at least I've never seen them to be, so I don't replace them either. So that's it for that video. Super easy one. Anyone can do this. If you enjoyed the video, throw me a subscribe. Remember to click on the bell icon if you want to get notifications when I release new videos. I'm the 50s Kid. Thanks a lot for watching.